Hello and welcome back to Final Girls Club, a podcast all about the tropes that we see throughout horror and daily life. My name is Baby Jane and I'm here with Blanche. Hello.
Wow. I can't believe I'm Blanche.
Oh, do you want me to be? Do you want me to be Blanche?
I want to be Baby Jane, of course.
Oh, I thought I was complimenting.
I'm all about Baby Jane. I've got a Baby Jane Hudson poster on my wall. I got the doll.
Okay. So. Let me walk it back. I'm Emily, aka Blanche, and I'm here with Baby Jane, aka Sammy.
Yeah, hi guys.
Hi. We're here to continue Hag Month because it's October and this is the Hag movie. There's too many, but it's one that really epitomizes so much of what we've been talking about, so much of what is the Hag, what it can look like in real life. I think this movie needs to be shown to everybody who has their kids in show business.
Right.
I'm getting ahead of myself here. We're covering What Happened to Baby Jane, the 1962 psychological horror thriller.
It's called Whatever Happened to Baby Jane.
Yes. Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. See, and here I was just trying to not say what had happened to Baby Jane, which is how I was introduced to it on Drag Race.
What happened?
That's how I knew it for years. I didn't know it was a real movie.
Oh my gosh. I went back and watched the classic Alaska Alyssa recreation of this in Celebration. And you remember how Alyssa couldn't say doodah?
Yeah, I don't need to rewatch it because I can just play it in my mind. That's how many times I've seen it.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I was connecting a lot of dots.
Yeah, this is one of RuPaul's favorite movies.
I completely understand why now for so many reasons.
Well, you're like the world's biggest fan because you accidentally watched a 1991 made-for-TV remake of this before the original. So you've literally seen this approached artistically so many different ways.
Yeah, thanks Tubi for misdirecting me, redirecting me.
Bait and switch. Do you have any quick thoughts on the Vanessa Redgrave version?
No, I mean, it's if you watch this movie and you really love it and you need as many versions of it as possible, actually just watch the Drag Race version, really.
If you really are short on time, go to the Drag Race version on YouTube. But if you have more time, you can go to Robert Aldrich's version of Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, starring Bette Davis and Joan Crawford. It is an adaptation of a novel, also written by a man. So it's a full male production, POV, on these hags. And I reignited my obsession with this movie from watching the Ryan Murphy series Feud, Betty and Joan, in 2021. I loved it. Any Baby Jane heads out there, if you are needing to soak in more, I recommend it. And this is a historical film. It was also in 2021 added to the U.S. National Film Registry to be preserved as a cultural, historical, aesthetically significant film. So hats off to them for that.
Yeah, better late than never.
Yeah, and back in the day, it was nominated for 5 Oscars, but it only won for Best Costume Design. Bette Davis lost to Anne Bancroft for The Miracle Worker.
That's okay. I was about to say the Oscars have been getting it wrong for decades. The Miracle Worker was a good movie. I can't slander it too much.
You've seen The Miracle Worker?
Yeah, the Helen Keller classic, hasn't it?
I never saw the Helen Keller classic personally.
Really? I thought we all saw it as kids and that's ignited all of our obsession with Helen Keller as a child. It did for me.
Oh, I missed that. I mean, was she a scammer or not? Get to the bottom of that yet?
No, actually, she was an ardent socialist and an activist, and that was squashed from her legacy. That was not explored in The Miracle Worker. Actually, I don't want to get too off track with Helen Keller lore, but look into Helen Keller's history as a far left activist that has been erased from the annals of history.
I will, and I'm sorry for bringing up the accusations that she was faking being deaf and blind.
I've never even heard that. We clearly do not.
Or no, there's definitely a conspiracy theory that either her teacher was scamming or that she was scamming or that it wasn't like the miracle everyone said.
Okay, we have very mismatched lore about Helen Keller, but she was not a hag and that's not what we're
Okay, yeah, we don't have time to fact check that. We're just gonna have to keep going past it. So this movie was a big hit. It cost less than $1 million to make, which in today's dollars would be 9 million, and it made 10 times that, so 96 million in today's dollars. Made a lot of people rich. These two battle axes.
Yeah. Was that a lot for a movie at the time?
A low budget horror like this, like they filmed it in black and white just to save money, and it was tough for them to even get the okay to make it because it was starring two old ladies. Well, they were in their 50s, but that was considered 100 back then. And they showed everybody. This was the biggest hit of the director's career. And he even played the song, I've Written a Letter to Daddy, at his own funeral.
Wow, macabre.
I love that song's been stuck in my head all day. Yeah.
Are we going to hear you singing it at any point?
At some point, yeah, I think I will launch into it, but I don't want
Since
to.
you are our baby Jane, a resident
give it all
baby
away up top.
Okay. Okay. Set the stage for us here.
Set the stage. First, I want to talk about our trope of the day really quick, and that is child star trauma. When I was watching this movie, sometimes I was asking myself, are Kim Richards and Kyle Richards recreating this movie when they have their "You Stole My House" fight in Real Housewives of Beverly Hills? Do they know about this? Or they're just purely reenacting the story in their own tragic way without even knowing about it? I don't know.
I think it's a real case of life imitating art, but I also think that the child star to Hag pipeline is very real. I think you're lucky if you get out of child stardom alive. And I'm not saying that even in a hyperbolic way, I mean literally alive. And then once you make it out alive, by the time you're in your 50s and 60s, you've lived 1,000 lives and most of them painful.
Yeah, imagine being told you're washed up at 12 years old. That would do something to you psychologically. And we get a direct reference to Shirley Temple in the movie. She's kind of the character of Baby Jane with her little golden curls and being a tap dancing star and then being forgotten by Hollywood. But this could be a movie dramatization of Judy Garland, Amanda Bynes, so many child stars who have tragic ends.
Maybe future JoJo Siwa. We'll see in a few decades.
God protect her.
Yeah, I'm not saying that's what I hope for, but when she was tap dancing in the beginning, I did think of JoJo Siwa.
I just saw her singing the song Betty Davis Eyes, but changing it to Chris Hughes Eyes. So confirmed connection to the film.
There's a string that runs through history, repeats. Speaking of history, let's talk a little bit about the social, historical, political context of when this movie was made in the 1960s, because as we know, pop culture and art is not made in a vacuum. It's made within context. So there was a lot going on in the 60s, to say the least.
Yeah. This came out in 1962 and it's set in 1962. Like the title card, when we finally reach the present, just says yesterday. So they're going for current here, hot topic. And it centers around two women living without a man in the house. They're unmarried. They have no children. This is definitely a statement on the second wave feminism of the 60s and the discussions around nuclear families, the home. What is the end goal of feminism? Where is this all headed? What if we end up with all these childless cat ladies or crazy old women living alone? This is kind of a horror's look at what that could become.
That was all it could be. It wasn't like women got the right to vote and then were suddenly empowered and set free into the world and given autonomy. It was like, okay, sure, legally, yes, you can have your autonomy, but will you become a psychotic drunk murderer? Probably.
Yeah. This movie, I would think it would have stood out at the time as having really only women stars. We get the two sisters, the maid, the neighbors, her daughter. It's really women driving the plot and having agency and stuff. And then there's just that one guy, the pianist. We'll get to him later.
And it's a cautionary tale of when you let women run wild. And it's funny because we've been talking about the hag as this sort of witch or ogre-like person living on the outskirts of society or in the forest. And this house, although it's in the middle of a neighborhood, it's in the middle of society, it basically is on the outskirts of society. It's this isolated little island.
Yeah. I was thinking about that a lot too, of this spookiness of the suburban setting and how it's very close to the neighbors, but it might as well be in another planet. The amount of secrecy that can happen between the two houses, even though there's some paranoia there and there's some attempts to contact each other, it's very easily covered up and hidden in secrets. And yeah, a lot is done secretly in the house that is very spooky stuff.
Yeah, and it was coming out of the 50s and this sort of motherhood and apple pie, leave it to beaver type of programming that was put out where it was all, everything was happy and jovial. And this was a look at this is what could really be going on behind closed doors at your neighbor's house, and you would have no idea.
Yeah, and speaking of paranoia and secrecy, this is coming right out of the McCarthyism era where neighbors are encouraged to be spying on each other, people are encouraged to report, homosexuals, socialists, just know everything that's going on with the people around you and rat them out to the government.
Yeah, anything under the guise of a communist or a defector. I mean, most of the people reported for communism or being a communist weren't, but it was any sort of behavior seen as antisocial or not with the status quo. Yes, un-American. Very relevant to today.
Yeah, so this writer, Shannon Malak, says that the upstairs-downstairs segregation that we see in the house is referencing the Berlin Wall. It's referencing the rise of civil rights, having two classes of society. The fact that these women were both working, actresses, making their own money, having their own checkbooks, choosing not to have children, that's all very much relevant to the horrors. That also, it reflects the shift in horror from monsters like Creature of the Black Lagoon to psychological horror, human cruelty, things like Hitchcock's Psycho, going into more human based horror.
Yeah, and moving into that, moving from a literal monster into looking at humans as monsters, what could be better to set the stage as the most monstrous thing of all as an old woman?
Or two.
God,
even worse.
Double double jump scare. Yeah,
jump scare. And one of them's disabled. And there's definitely been a lot of writers discussing how disability is framed in this movie and portrayed as like a secret monster in the house kind of thing. There's also a strong racial undercurrent in the film with the strong character of the maid, Elvira, who is just trying to do a decent thing, but she's treated very disrespectfully by Jane. She's trying to help Blanche. She's working in this decaying mansion. Julia Stern wrote that the decaying house is an allegory of what was perceived as the decaying power of whiteness at the time. And we have Blanche as this enslaved character in the house. And Elvira is very forward moving for a Black character. She talks about being on jury duty. She's standing up for herself, and her fate is seen as a symbolic reassertion of white supremacy and reflecting the fears that maybe people of color will rise up and replace the white power establishment that had been going on at the time. And I have to say that theme we are hearing sadly a lot today, this whole like great replacement theory and new white supremacist rhetoric, red pill stuff that's going on is very similar to what we're seeing in this movie.
Well, let's talk a bit more about what happens to Elvira and let's get into the plot of what becomes of their fate. Yeah. Okay, so to set the stage, it's the early 1910s and Baby Jane is tapping away on stage, being the child star that she is, getting the applause for her hit song, I've Written a Letter to Daddy, to a packed theater of applauding men and women. It's very saccharine. It's very much something that only a child star could perform. Adults aren't writing a letter to daddy, but it perfectly sets the stage for something that would be so haunting for a decrepit older woman to perform, which we see later.
To a few versions of it, thank God.
Yeah, I'm hoping I'll get one rendition from my co-host this episode. We'll see. She's a little bitch at the time. She's a little brat, I should say. I should give her credit. It's not her fault.
She's 9 years old.
I'm going to cool it. As I said it, I'm like, why am I coming for this child, this fictional child?
She's bratty. She's demanding ice cream. She's making a scene in front of her fans and embarrassing her parents by being this bratty, demanding child star.
Yeah, it's not her fault. Her parents, the world has made her into a little bit of a monster. And meanwhile, her sister Blanche sits on the sidelines, resentful, but just having to wait it out and see if she'll get her moment in the spotlight, which she later does. So later on, we jump forward to adulthood where they're all grown up and washed up.
In the 1916 scenes, we see like horse and buggies going by, and everybody has these really high neck frilly dresses. We're really getting a sense of like, this is the past and culture is moving quickly. When we jump forward to 1935, we're in the golden age of Hollywood, and now Blanche is the big star. And we see a screen test for Jane. She's grown up, but she's deemed untalented. She's whispered about as being an alcoholic already, unprofessional on set. Some studio executives are talking shit about her, dismissing her, saying, we're not even going to release this picture that she's in. We have to figure out a way to get around Blanche's contract clause, which says for every movie she makes for the studio, they should put Jane in one as well. So that's kind of the first we hear about the relationship between the sisters as adults. And I'm thinking, wow, Blanche is really trying to reach a hand out for her sister and trying to have her back.
Yeah, I will say one thing I garnered from the 1991 version of this movie is that it was really emphasized how much Jane was the favorite and always favored by the parents and always given so much more behind the scenes and celebrated for doing the same things as Blanche. And so this sets her up for failure. But she's basically being dragged along as this deadweight. And Blanche ultimately is the one who really pulls in the money in the end, enough to buy them the house that they live in as these two washed up sisters.
We get a little scene, a mysterious car crash scene. We just see one sister running over the other one, smashing them into the gate of their house. And then you see the baby Jane doll in the back of the car with its head all smashed, and out flies the title card. I just love that. They just don't do that anymore like they used to in movies.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is when the movie shifts. We go from just two girls to now the decay is really ramping up. Their careers are over. They're coasting when we see them next in 1962.
Blanche is disabled due to the accident. What exactly happened in the accident, we don't fully know. It's assumed that baby Jane was perhaps the one causing it, but we don't yet know. And the mansion is a perfect symbol for what they are, which was something that was once beautiful and rich and glamorous and is now dusty and haunted.
Yeah, we meet the next door neighbor, a lady who loves to gossip, and her daughter, who is actually played by Betty Davis's real life daughter. And they're watching Blanche's old movies on TV. And so is Blanche in the house. She's in her wheelchair, but she's still really enjoying watching her old films on TV. Meanwhile, Jane is chugging whiskey. She's muttering. She's so pissed every time Blanche rings that little call bell. She's, you miserable bitch.
Yeah. And the key to this house is Blanche lives on the top floor. So this discrepancy of the top and the bottom floor, when we were talking before about the separation, like the metaphor for the Berlin Wall or the separation between classes, is seen as this person disabled, stuck on the second floor, can't access the first floor, and with it, the outside world. Has to stay up there ringing the bell, hoping for the best. And all she has to interact with is her beloved parakeet, but that quickly unravels.
I was thinking of Mazel Tov in this scene. I wondered if I should have sent you a trigger warning.
Shout out to my evil bird that I had for 14 years named Mazel Tov. I was given it when I was 7 as a birthday present. No one knew it would live as long as it did. Hateful, spiteful. We probably should have set it free, honestly.
Oh my god, this bird's being set free was to the Lord's arms. But
This bird's nothing like Mazel Tov. Mazel Tov had nothing but hatred in her heart for 14 years.
This was a troubled bird too. The only time we saw it alive, it was really acting out, picking all its feathers out, slamming them around. And so Jane's like, okay, let me clean this cage. Let me take this bird out and clean it. Also, Blanche has another friend, which is Elvira the maid. They hold hands sometimes, and Elvira's, listen, Jane's fucking insane. I can tell you that she's getting worse and worse. We need to get a doctor involved in this. She brings up getting her institutionalized, things like that. Blanche is reluctant, but realizing that would probably be a good idea. And then she could live with Elvira or some sort of setup like that.
Yeah, and Elvira is one of the only connections Blanche has to the outside world. That and the bird and the doctor, and both get quickly cut off from her. So, I mean, the bird really seems to serve as a clear metaphor for Blanche. She's trapped in a cage, and Jane accidentally lets the parakeet escape. She can essentially manipulate this bird like a puppet, just like she does to her little sister. And she's using her sister to get things. She does a perfect eerie imitation of her sister to chat on the phone, posing as Blanche, ordering liquor, running amok, and ultimately we see her going into the psychological torment that unfolds and unravels with her serving the parakeet on a platter to Blanche for dinner.
Real spooky scene of her lifting the silver platter, and it's unfortunately Mazel Tov on the plate. Sorry, I don't mean to make you gasp, but
no, I just didn't.
Parakeet.
I just didn't like. It's just so there's very few people.
Stop talking about him. I was like almost in tears, almost thinking about like how sad it would be to be served your pet bird.
There's so few. That's like a deep cut of knowing the name of my like childhood bird. I also just need to juxtapose like the way that they look. So Blanche is beautiful, striking. She's aged very gracefully, wheelchair bound, and just looking very dignified, stunning. And meanwhile, Jane is grotesque in the way that she's made up in this movie. She's painted white. Her face is painted a very pale shade of white.
It's literally white face. She has white face paint on, and then she draws on a little heart-shaped beauty mark on her cheek, which is so spooky as well.
Yeah, she looks like when I tried to do the makeup looks that I did on myself when I was like in my early 20s on myself now. Like it just doesn't look, it looks spooky, it looks eerie, it looks not right.
Yeah, Jane's costuming is lace floral dresses, old-fashioned rag curls, caked on stage makeup, I guess you could say. So she's still trapped in 1916 as her 9-year-old self. We see her singing, "I've written a letter to Daddy," and when she gets to the line, "I'm far too young to know any better," she steps into the light and then she sees her reflection being aged and wrinkly, and she just covers her face and bursts into tears.
Now I wish that you would tell me, 'cause I'm much too young to know.
Meanwhile, Blanche, yes, she's more elegant, she's restrained. She's trapped in her 1930s costume. She's got her pussy bow blouse on. She has her big pompadour bun hairstyle, and she's giving repressed. She never screams in this movie once. If she would have just fucking screamed, there's so many times when she could have been saved, gotten help, gotten agency, gotten control, but she's very repressed and scared and quiet and trying to remain like a prim little princess. Jane is escalating. She's unplugging phones. She's cutting off Blanche from all contact. First, she serves her the parakeet. Then she serves her a bloody rat. So Blanche starts starving herself from fear.
And she tells Elvira, one of her only connections to the outside world, to skedaddle. She pays her to leave, says that she's needed less. And we see Blanche staring at the phone downstairs, so close yet so far, because the upstairs phone has been disconnected.
Yeah, and there's these really steep Spanish tiled stairs. They look sharp. It would be hard to fall down those. So we see Blanche like thinking about trying to climb down using just her body's strength to get down there and use the phone a few times, but she holds back. She's like too scared until it's too late to make that jump. Eventually, Jane decides she wants to revive her act exactly as it was when she was 9 years old. So she places an ad in the newspaper for an accompanist, and we meet Mr. Edwin Flagg. He's a schlubby, middle-aged mama's boy living with his mom, unemployed, and he answers the ad because he plays the piano. And he meets Jane, comes to the house, and is very flattering, almost flirty, just like, oh yeah, I remember you. Wow, this sounds like a great act. Sure, totally. So you think you can pay me in advance or...
Yeah, it's one of the saddest, scariest parts of the movie, how Jane continually goes up to people and is, don't you know who I am? Or guess who I am? And they're all like, I don't know. Who are you? And she's baby Jane, of course. And
yeah,
they still don't know.
Her delusion just keeps growing and growing. And the past bleeds into the future more and more.
It's so haunting, the thought of her reviving her act, because her act is, I've written a letter to daddy.
The thought of a 55-year-old woman tap dancing in 1962. The cultural difference between 1916 and 1962 might as well be 500 years apart. You can't revive an act from the vaudeville days when they didn't even have films.
And that's what made me think of JoJo Siwa, because she's still singing like Boomerang. She's still touring with that, which is her song from when she was 7. Like,
oh, I didn't know that. I don't know her goings on as well as you do.
I'll come back like a boomerang. Like, it's just this song for kids, but she's playing it. I don't know. Okay, I don't want to put this on JoJo.
But I get what you're saying. Yeah, I was definitely making connections too, thinking about Amanda Bynes and things like that. So Edwin is a queer-coded character. We get Jane being like, so, do you have any lady friends in your life? And he's like, nothing like that. Don't worry about that. But Jane is not clocking that tea, unfortunately. And she gets this crush in her head and she thinks maybe they'll be able to be together.
Hold on. Okay. I didn't necessarily take that as queer-coded, just that he's not super into this woman with a completely white face and slightly horrifying childish makeup, wrinkles, and a little girly dress.
I get what you're saying. He wouldn't have to be gay to not be interested in what she's putting down, but he is, mama. He is. And the actor is too, famously. And
okay.
Yeah. It's a queer-coded movie. What can I say? It's on every level.
It's for the girls and the gays. Okay, yeah. I see. Yes. And not just because he's not receiving her advances.
Yes. No, a man can turn you down without gayness being the reason.
Yes. She's presenting Edwin with he wants to revive the act.
So she's thinking she made this friend and she's getting more and more pissed at Blanche. You want to keep me from my friend. You want to steal him from yourself. And the pianist is doing a lot of face work behind the scenes with being a lot of, ooh, yikes. Like, but on the surface,
he's just trying to get a check. He's desperate for money.
He is. Yes, he is. And while Jane is downstairs, Blanche goes into her room looking for food, eating some chocolates, and she discovers that Jane has been forging her signature and cashing checks as her for a while.
Paying a whopping $90 for a child costume to be made in an adult size for her to take back the stage, to reclaim her act, as one could say. And the abuse of her sister continues to escalate rapidly. Yes. Her mental state declines. We see her starving her sister, feeding her rats, hitting her, disconnecting her from the outside world more and more. And the only one who's really noticing, or who knows enough about the situation and is there regularly enough to notice it, is Elvira, the caretaker.
Yeah. Even though eventually Blanche does get motivated enough to get down those stairs and get on the phone and call the doctor and beg him to come, unfortunately, Jane catches her and calls back and does her Blanche impression and gets him to stay away. And Elvira, however, is not letting Jane send her away, even though she keeps trying. She decides to break into the house and go check to see if Blanche is okay. And she very heroically tries to free her. She's now chained up in her room, door locked, she's drugged, and unfortunately, Jane does catch her in the act of trying to free Blanche and kills her with a hammer.
Yeah. She's the one ultimately in this movie receiving the worst act of violence, being killed with this hammer. And you were talking before a little bit about the ties to the civil rights movement at the time. Can you elaborate on that?
Elvira's the actress who played her, Maisie Norman, I believe, was allowed to write her own dialogue. So she changed it to include the fact that she's on jury duty. She made the character have a lot more agency. And the conflict between her and Jane in that scary white mask is Jane's trying to enforce that like very disrespectful, hierarchical relationship that probably a white homeowner would have had with their housemaid before. And Elvira rebuffs it. She is her own person and she's going to do what she thinks is right.
Yeah, and in the process of just trying to do what's right, she gets killed for it, which is very much metaphor for what was happening then, what's happening now. And also, it's part of a long-standing trend of the Black character getting killed first in the horror movie.
Yeah, like clearly Jane, even though it's not a premeditated murder, she just kills her to try and cover up her crime when she catches her in the moment. Clearly she thought this person is somewhat disposable and maybe I could get away with this. And it sets into motion the final act of the movie where Jane says, okay, listen, we've got to run away because the police are now going to be looking for me. She talks about how she was told she hurt Blanche by a policeman back when they had their original accident. And she was like, and I was so confused. I didn't feel like I could have done that. And that's how I feel now. I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I killed Elvira. You know, she's losing touch with reality a bit.
And it's a genuine confusion. She truly is unraveling, and her voice goes in and out of this sinister, childlike voice. And it's clear that she's both regressing into her childhood self and also, losing touch with sanity.
Yeah, she touches down with knowing what she did at times and then pushes it away and goes into fantasy and then like remembers. And yeah, she's definitely losing touch. So Edwin at some point comes and discovers Blanche tied up also and runs away to tell the police of what's going on there now. Now we've got double heat coming to Jane, but she's caring enough to get Blanche together for a fun Malibu beach day as their last outing. Meanwhile, this murder kidnapping story has reached the radio by the time they get to the beach the next day. Jane's making sandcastles. Blanche is shivering motionless nearby.
Yeah, no one seems to notice this is a crowded beach, but Blanche is dying on the beach. She's been starved, beaten, held captive, and baby Jane is being a baby Jane. She's frolicking. She's, playing in the sand and then
bouncing a beach ball with some kids.
Yeah. And we get to hear Blanche's dying confession to her, which is that Blanche actually was the one responsible for her own injury, her own becoming
paralyzed from the waist down.
Yeah, she's the one responsible for becoming paralyzed for the accident. And she knew that Jane was drunk and confused and essentially by omission put it on her.
Oh,
Jane.
Not by omission. Like I was driving that night. I made you go out and open the gate. Then I wanted to ram you down and kill you. And I did that, but you got out of the way in time. And so I had the major impact from that accident. And then I crawled out of the car and lied by the gate. So by the time the police got there, it looked like you drunkenly drove into me, and I let you believe that your whole life. And I'm sorry. Like, she was just like, you were so mean to me at that party we were just at, and I just wanted to crush you. I'm really sorry because you weren't ugly then, but I made you that way.
Yeah.
And
so it's not just Jane who has been completely scrambled from child stardom. It's also Blanche. Just Blanche's cruelty gets outshadowed.
exactly, that is revealed that they're equally as deranged. They've both victimized each other a lot. And Jane's reply to this confession is, oh, you mean all this time we could have been friends? It's like very sad.
And it seems to be the final step to driving Jane to complete madness. And we watched the movie close out with her ice cream cones in hand, tap dancing, twirling and singing as the radio's going, her crimes of Elvira going missing are being heard, the police and the public are closing in around her in this circle, and they're watching her dance.
Yeah,
and
she just sees a crowd. She just sees a dance circle, and she's going to show these people what I got.
the movie ends how it starts, with her tap dancing for a crowd who are transfixed by her.
Yeah, and she's radiant. Like, in her last delusional moments, like when she's ordering the ice cream and dancing, she's just beaming. She has a real lightness to her. It's like everything's off her shoulders and she's fully let go into the delusion, and it suits her.
Yeah, she's free in that brief moment. And fine, we end there.
Faye.
Yeah.
Yeah. We do have some roundups here for Academic Minute. There's been so much ink spilled about this movie over the years. I read dozens of interpretations of it, and it's great because Jody Brooks writes that Jane is operating in a multiple possessed body where she's both a precocious child star and a prematurely aging old hag. And Betty Davis is able to capture both of those identities in her performance. And she's literally possessed by Blanche when she does the voice. It's so scary. And I couldn't tell in the movie if she was really doing it or if it was like a voiceover and they had Joan Crawford do it, because it was so perfect.
I thought the same thing.
Yeah. And it's so she's doing kind of a demonic take on femininity that is predatory. Also, I just want to shout out her performance. I think she did an incredible job in this movie, being scary, commanding, funny at times.
Yeah, they both Joan Crawford and Betty Davis did an incredible performance where it's like this rivalry, but it mirrors a real life rivalry that existed between these two actresses in real life, that the public pitted these stars against each other like a tale as old as time. And they both capture such fear and loss of innocence, and both spiraling into madness.
Yeah. And because this movie is camp, it is walking that double edge of being a mean-spirited spectacle of these aging women. But also there's a real sense of pleasure and liberation in being able to let yourself go completely, act totally oversized, like out of the range of what is considered natural, normal ways of humans to act. Like, her performance, especially Betty Davis, I'm obsessed with, is just so powerful that she can elicit empathy from the audience because she puts nuance into this outsized performance. She brings the human element to it.
Yeah, because it's ultimately, even if she is going around and performing these acts of cruelty, if she was to be made to work from a very young age, before there were any sorts of protections against child stars, I mean, there's not enough now, but there was none then. You see how she's a product of her environment. How could she be much more than she became? And yeah, going back to the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills and the Kyle and Kim Richards of it all, I think about the early seasons of Beverly Hills and how Kim ultimately had to be taken off the show because it was too sad to watch. It wasn't fun. It wasn't tea. Like, it was just
No.
it was like, this is exploitative to have her on our screens.
Yeah, even though she had some amazing moments and some high highs and has been in some of the most iconic scenes from that franchise, she haunts that franchise like a ghost because she was so larger than life and then self-destructed and had to be taken away, whereas Kyle kind of got to be this redeemed Blanche type figure where she got the best of all the worlds. She made that money on the back of Kim, really being the sacrificial lamb to go out there and be the child star that made the money that bought the house.
Yeah, and even down to the blonde and brunette, they really are this, like, I don't want to say visual mirror because they're more than, I'm not trying to
No, but it is
insult them, but
it would be creepy to be them and watch this movie for sure.
Yes, and I wonder if they have the self-reflection, the ability to reflect on the parallels between their lives. But one of their most famous fights was, "You stole my goddamn house." And in this movie, there is this debate of who owns this house and
yes,
whose stardom purchased this house.
Yes, exactly. They go back and forth about that. Blanche says, I bought this house at the height of my fame. And Jane says, no, it was baby Jane money that bought this house. And yeah, they definitely have this bitter rivalry. And I think that their parents, which are in the first scene of the movie, but then not really referred to again, Jane talks about her daddy as this like angel who she wishes was there. And we see the mother sort of seeding this competition, this lifelong passive aggressiveness with Blanche when she says, Blanche, you're actually the lucky one. And one day it'll be you in the spotlight. And don't worry, but try to be kinder when you get there than Jane is now that she's on top. Whereas the stage dad sacrifices Jane and just brings her out there like this freak show and tours her around and exploits her for money. Yeah, neither parent is going to win any awards for that.
Yeah, Big Kathy is responsible for all of this in the case of the Richards family. And this is the last I'll say of the Richards sisters, which is during COVID on Beverly Hills. We saw Kim, they were mentioning that she was alone in this big empty house and she was finding peace and painting murals on the walls. And to me, it sent a chill down my spine, like of concern, but it's like clear. It doesn't seem like Kim is going to be able to access a sense of peace in this lifetime.
I know. And I do believe that she tries. She reaches for artistic ways to work through her pain, but she can't stop being an addict, much in the same way we see Jane unable to stop drinking to numb the pain. And it's very super sad. Yeah, baby Jane was the beginning of Hag horror. There was nothing like this until this movie. And it tapped into gothic horror in a way. These women in the castle in their long dresses running around and being very over the top, but also connecting that instead of being about ghosts and vampires as gothic horror was, making it about family trauma, really. The quiet, banal kind of things that can turn regular people into monsters.
Yeah, and they start with fame and power and money, and it seems like they have enough money from their early stardom to carry them through life. But the hag archetype is often childless, and we know motherhood, well, quite literally keeps you busy, keeps you very busy. And this is a very sinister portrayal of like, this is what happens when these women are, one, alone, and two, have way too much time on their hands because they're not raising a family. They're not busy being the mother.
There's definitely a cautionary tale here about childlessness. You don't want to be left to your own devices too much, ladies, or you'll go insane. And there's also, I just love the sense of the old eras and the way that they each are trapped in their different eras, and like the concept of Jane as being a time traveler. She's straddling the line between the past and the future. She's like a relic from the past, and she couldn't keep up with the way that society was going forward. Jody Brooks writes that she embodies the trope of a pregnant hag, which is a grotesque figure which is embodying both birth and death youth and decay at the same time and blurring the distinction between them, which creates a frightening break in the time space continuum for people, where Jane is aged and she's also reminding us of the past and the danger of being stuck in the past. And I feel like women, especially, are always warned, don't get stuck in the past. Don't dress like you used to in your youth. You don't want people to know your age. Like, just always stay up to date with everything and make yourself look as young as possible, and don't let yourself be left behind.
Yeah, and they're both ultimately frozen at the age when they were at their height. So Jane is frozen in this infantile, childlike state at times because that was when she was at her peak. And Blanche was at her peak later in life, but still is in the movie depicted as very much past her prime, and just watching her old movies and looking back, getting her only joy from reminiscing on the good old days and reading letters from people who like her movies, reading fan mail.
Mm-hmm. And the movie itself doesn't really show any window or path that could be something that these women could do that would be more productive, like a healthy thing they could do. They are shown as being like, your career is over, it's dead. There's nothing you could do right now except for rot and go insane. Unfortunately, there's just no other option for you.
And that is a real life danger of reaching the peak, having everything, having inordinate amounts of wealth and being celebrated, and then looking at like, where do we go from here? That's how we get works, perhaps albums like Life of a Showgirl I've seen recently.
Yeah. Yeah, we hear that famous people get trapped in the age they become famous, and this movie is definitely co-signing that theory.
Yeah, we've explored so much past reality TV and we've seen it play out in so many different ways. It seems like you're lucky if you break out of that, if you're able to mature past the age when you peaked, reach the height of fame.
Yeah. We don't get a happy ending for these characters. Possibly Blanche could be helped by the policeman. I mean, we don't see her die, but Jane goes to jail, and it's just another cautionary tale, ladies.
Yeah.
Keep it together.
Yeah, keep it together, because if you really do let yourself go, let yourself feel the peak joy, it could look like you tap dancing on a beach in a little girl dress for the police. So
yeah, delusional, but it's also a blaze of glory. Like, I just love the beach scenes at the end. Even though it's short, it's so memorable and just creepy. And you're in the broad daylight for the first time. They're in the shadowy mansion for almost the whole movie. And then they're out in the sun, just having fun. Two girls.
they're liberated. They're both, in a lot of ways. Blanche is literally trapped in the mansion in that she's on the second floor and cut off from the world. But Jane is trapped in the mansion mentally, just pacing around, not able to create a life for herself outside of her, surrounded by her relics from her child star days. There's posters all around of baby Jane. And on the beach, they're free. They're out in the light and the sunshine, exposed to the world. Finally, Blanche being tortured and reduced to nothing is exposed to the world. One would think perhaps she got the help she needed after this. And Jane's insanity is exposed.
Yeah, they don't have to hide or pretend anymore. Like, they say that when criminals are caught for their crimes, they sleep like a baby in jail the first night because they're like, oh, it's over. Like, I don't have to try to get away with this anymore and lie and cover up, and everything's out there, and I can just be secure in that knowledge.
Yeah, Jane got to put on one last show.
Yeah.
For the crowds, for the adoring crowds.
And doesn't have to live that really scary, trapped, resentful existence in the house anymore.
No.
She's going somewhere else now.
Yeah. Trapped somewhere else, but tasted that freedom for a beautiful fleeting moment.
Yeah, but she'll be better off in an institution. Maybe she'll have a second act.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, at the time, like they were still lobotomizing you for the gods and giving you what,
Yeah.
morphine and dildos and like what else?
Sounds fun. Like, I think she could maybe make some friends.
Yeah, it doesn't sound terrible to the mentally ill, us included. Not to underscore the mistreatment that people got at the time, but yeah, cheeky lobotomy and morphine drip. Who amongst us hasn't fantasized? Probably some well adjusted people listening, and I tip my hat to them. Do we have any closing thoughts? I think we covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah, me too. Just that I loved it. That's it.
Yeah, and we're going to be bringing you more hags, different types of hags. Do we want to give them a little taste of what we have left in Hag Month?
In the Hag Tank.
Mhm.
Yeah, we're going to be covering the substance.
I'm both excited and terrified to get into it, but we're going to be breaking it down for you next. So, looking forward to it. If you enjoyed this podcast, you can follow along, rate us, give us a 5-star rating. It would help us out. Leave us a review. You can follow us. We do pop culture roundups on Patreon, patreon.com/it's become a whole thing every week. And we'll
You can
see you
follow
next
us on
week.
Instagram
Yes.
at Final Girls Club Pod.
Yes. And we'll be back next week.
Bye.
Bye, hags.